Hello everyone, this is Bell Dent and welcome back to Blender where I am constructing a Akira class starship. From the last episode I've done a little bit of work on the hull, but really more or less a lot of experimentation on trying to figure out what is the next step, how am I going to model this bottom portion here of this of the saucer section, how am I going to figure out how to do the saucer separation, all lines along this section and this section here, because if you remember correctly, and I think 2 or 3 episodes ago, maybe a little bit more than that, where the hull, it continues to bow out like this, but I want to try to actually have it to where right about here it starts to cave, or it starts to come in more. So figure out how to properly model that, and should I boolean the hull with this and then model it, or boolean the secondary hull with the catamaran hulls and then model that. So been doing a lot of experimentation. So I actually got a couple of additional um, little hull pieces that I really probably need to go ahead and delete because for the most, it's just kind of just really increasing the size of my file, and I probably really don't need those. But as far as work that has been done on the ship, I started adding in a few more of the window details, as you can see here on the top portion of the secondary hull, and started working on the bridge module, which I'll probably be doing almost an entire episode just based on that eventually. Now, one thing I did notice that before I go too far, or before I move too far away from the saucer section, is that I need to go ahead and cut this out more. I know I did this wrong, apparently. I did a cut to where it was right there, but looking at the reference pictures again, is that actually the hull stops right here. And then there's a piece that's extruded out from this cut out of the hull, which shows this. I thought this was part of the hull as well, but um, so I need to go ahead and probably redo all of this, which means I'm going to have to redo the entire section here that I went ahead and started modeling in the forward-facing shuttle bay. So yeah, I'll probably do that maybe at the before we exit this episode. But to start off this episode, we're working on this secondary, or this bottom portion of the primary hull. Let's go ahead and just bring that out. Now, what I went ahead and done is these were two separate pieces. This area here, this area here was two separate pieces. I went ahead and took it and combined them both. Now, for the most part, a lot of people would go ahead and just leave it like that, but it doesn't really give a good, clean mesh, in my opinion. If we look at the wireframe, actually, let's go ahead and go into solid and go in edit mode. You can see what I'm talking about here. We have a bunch of faces here that we don't need anymore. So when we're trying to UV unwrap this entire ship, that, I really need to stop using that mouse cursor so much. I've been told that I've been doing that too much. But anyways, moving in here, you can see that there's all these faces that are not actually seen. I mean, they should not be seen from the outside, so we can delete those. But if we delete those, then we got, let's say like if I delete this vertex here, it deletes these faces. So I would have to go through and then come in and select those and face that. But then you have this little area here. So I can put a face there, but you got this little area here that is kind of, it's exposed. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is kind of combine these meshes to clean up the mesh. Now I know I could have done a boolean and did an addition modifier, or not necessarily boolean, but, or not addition. Let's see, what would it be? Boolean and union. I could have done a boolean and union modifier, and it would have just took this mesh and added on this mesh. And I think it may have deleted all, it would delete all of these, and probably would have made my life a little bit simpler, but that's not what I decided to do. So I'm going to go ahead and combine these, and I'm going to do a little bit of how I'm going to do this on screen to show y'all. If y'all are watching my other series where I am building a Star Wars scene, you've already seen this technique on the at walker. But if y'all don't watch that series, I'm going to go ahead and show you now. So what I need to do, what is that? Okay, I've already done some areas. As you can see here, there was a vertice that was out over here that I went ahead and moved it along that axis until it intersected right here where this line here is at. Oh, I did do a Boolean modifier on this portion of the hull to subtract this section of the hull as well. So these lines here will line up perfectly along the contours of this part of the hull here. So therefore, if I was to take, let's say like this vertex here and hit G twice and move this along here, right where it gets to the point to where it should intersect, I'm going to go to a bottom view here so we can see it just a little bit easier. Let me click. What is that? Does that say? Yeah, limit selection. Let's see which vertex. Ah, here we go. So if I go GG to where I'm moving that vertex along that face, when I get right about there, where it starts to poke its little head out of right there. Okay, it looks like it might poke out a little bit too much. We should, for the most part, be pretty close to that. So let's go. Let me show you. I can try to explain it, but let me show you. I've already done a lot of that right here. So what I'm going to go at, so this here is pretty easy. All I need to do is, let's go ahead and first delete this face here. We don't need that. If I go there, press F, that's going to add an edge. I'm just going to add in some additional edge loops here. It's going to clean up, so we go R. I'm going to put that right about where almost lines up with that. And if I'm off, say like it needs to be in there, just press GG while that whole edge loop is selected, and I can move that around till I get it right where I want it. And just go through, click, 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 press F, and there we go. We get a nice little seam right there. And I'll show you when I get this all done why I decided to do it this way rather than just leave it as this bundle of a mess. And not only for UV mapping, but for other purposes as well, because we're also trying to preserve our edge loop flow on this model. So if we do a subdivision surface modifier on it, or if we want to add in additional, because like right here, if I wanted to add in an additional line here, if I just did Control R there, see it stops right on that face. If I go here, it stops on that face. Here where I've already done the work, if I do a Control R there, see what that's doing is that that's continuing that edge, this entire edge loop sequence right along here, so I can go ahead and subdivide it if need be. So I'm going to just keep doing this, Control R there, and if I want, I can just go ahead and just do Control, just keep doing this for every single additional edge loop that I want. Then just go through, bam, there. Or actually just do a shortcut. I can go to edge select two edges, F, just like that. Makes it a lot quicker. So that's pretty much how we do that. Let's do the same thing on this other side. Now I could do this, but let's go ahead. You scroll mouse, when you do a Control R and you scroll mouse, you can add in additional, as many as you want. But just so I don't have to select all those edge loops again one at a time, I'll just put them in one at a time. Why do twice as much work if we don't have to? So there we go. Just go through. Be sure to hold down Shift when you're picking those. Oops. F. Select Shift F. Right mouse, Shift right mouse. Or however you have your keyboard or your mouse shortcuts done. And that is all one continued mesh with all the edge loops preserved. Now, in an area like this right here, now how am I going to do this? Pretty much almost the same thing. I'm going to do Control R. I'm going to add an edge right there. Now, can I do, no, I can't. I cannot do that there. I'm going to add in an edge loop there. Then I'm going to select. Now, another thing that I can do, oh, okay, never mind. It already, where did those come from? I don't think I did though. Did I? Oh, you know what? That's probably from the Boolean modifier. Okay, the Boolean modifier already did some of my work for me, apparently. So to clean this up, I can just click here, select there, Alt-M, go to the last, and then once again to preserve that edge loop, these edge loops, I can just, once again, just select this, delete that face. Oh, but see, it also deleted that as well. But all right, that gives me a chance we can look at that. So press F, and there. Whoops. You have a third one right there. Now for that third one there, I can do one of two things. It all depends on how you want to preserve your geometry. I can either add an extra edge loop there, select, 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 press Control F, like that. Now this stops there, but this should, no, it doesn't preserve that. Another thing that I can do, well, as you can see, it doesn't preserve an edge loop going along into this one. If I wanted to do that, if it doesn't bother me too much, I can go back to what I did here originally, then select this, or select actually, yeah, there, Alt-M at last, but no, that doesn't preserve the edge loop as well. So really what I might need to go ahead and do is add an extra edge loop here, add an extra edge loop here. Let's go ahead, select that, Alt-M at last, select this face and delete that. Then there, there. Now this preserves that edge loop. Now it doesn't preserve an edge loop here though, unfortunately. I could go in and try to, now there's several different things that I can probably go ahead and do, but we'll look at that a little bit later. I mean, shortly I could, if you did selected this and merged those two together, you have the edge loop there, but you're just moving, you're breaking your geometry, your edge loop right up along here. You know, edge loops don't like triangles, which is why I try to avoid modeling in triangles as much as possible. So really what I might need to probably go ahead and do is add in a very small edge loop right along this edge here and continue that, which we'll look at that here in a minute. We could do that once we get this all put together, and I'll show y'all how. Let's go ahead and do that. And now I should be able to, there we go, add an edge loop, move that right to where I see where this intersects. That's pretty good. Follow it along. You see it intersects with this edge here. Then select this vertice, select that edge, do an Alt-M at last, and there we go. And once again, it preserves that the geometry and adds in a smooth edge loop that I can subdivide. And we just go through and I just keep modifying it here. What I want to do is I can do one of two things. I can either add an edge loop here. Once again, this all depends on you. I can do that, Alt-M at last, like that, which means I have an extra edge loop on this saucer area here, but remember I'm going to have to add that edge loop when I combine the lower section of the saucer to the upper section. Or what I can go ahead and do is I can select two lines here, go to edge loop, and press G to move this geometry to be in line with that, which actually I like doing it that way. So I just select, let's go ahead and do that again. So I select two congruent or adjacent, not congruent, adjacent vertices, do a Control E and say I want to select an edge loop. That edge loop, so it selects that edge loop and press GG and move that edge loop to where it intersects in with that line. with this edge loop here. Then just, once again, just press select that vertice, Alt M, and tell it to go to last. And then I do this to each and every single vertice along here, or adding or moving edge loops as much as possible. So with that being said, let me go ahead and jump out and finish this all along to clean this all up so it's one good congruent, or not congruent. I am using words that, what's the little meme from Princess's Bride? That word, I don't think you know what that word means. I don't think you know what that, or whatever he says. I just failed at Princess Bride, quote. But anyways, let me go ahead and jump out real quick and finish this bottom portion of the mesh. And then I'll be right back and we'll take a look at how to fix this little issue right here. So give me a minute. All right, everyone, I'm going to have to admit defeat. Yes, it is true. I'm admitting defeat. Um, but no, don't worry, not for the whole ship, just with this particular piece, more particularly with this piece and this piece, trying to get these two to match together within and still have a consistent and clean geometry was not working. I actually tried several different methods, several different times to try to get it to work, and it just wasn't working out. So I went ahead and decided to just kind of start over again just on this bottom sections. And for right now, this piece is a separate part from this piece. If y'all have been following me around, y'all know, excuse me, if y'all have been following me online and watching my videos, y'all know that I usually like to try to have it to where the meshes are together as much as possible. And please don't get me wrong, the little tip that I showed you at the beginning of the episode does indeed work. As you can see it work on, I mean, it worked for a certain degree on this model, and it did work within my Star Wars scene when I was showing that trick off there. So it does work. Y'all can use it. Just with this particular model, the topography between this and this just wasn't quite, you know, wasn't, it just wasn't really quite working. And I figured I could probably toy around with it again for a few more hours and maybe get it to work right, but I decided to go ahead and call it quits so I can move on with the rest of the model. I may probably go ahead and in between this episode and the next episode take a look at how other people have made made the Akira class, and I'm pretty from ones I've seen before, they pretty much are doing the exact same thing that I did, where they took, this particular piece here is separate from this piece here, and I not 100% positive, but there's a pretty good chance that the studio model might also be like that as well, where once again this piece here is separate from this piece. They're two completely different meshes. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking is what they done. So we're going to just move right along and just call this as is. So as you can see, I've already started putting in the deflector dish. I got a little bit of an anomaly, right? No, actually, that's not an anomaly. I don't know what that is. But I've already started working on the deflector dish and got a couple of ideas on how to design that. One thing that I'm trying to figure out is this area right here. This is where I'm going to ask y'all's opinion for it. The best that I could tell from the studio model is that this is some sort of recessed area, and that's the way I've modeled it. I just don't know exactly how recessed it is, but what the purpose of this is, I'm not 100% positive. Now, looking back at let me bring this down to the bottom view. Looking back at the actual video of Star Trek First Contact, where you first see this, you see some sort of torpedo actually launching from here. But my personal opinion, this is just once again my personal opinion, is I don't think that that's supposed to be a torpedo launcher because, and I'm tending to think that the torpedo launcher is actually this little detail right here. That looks more like that would be a torpedo launcher. So, and I'm going to kind of almost want to chalk it up that in the movie having it fire from here was an error or a continuity error. I mean, it's happened before several times where we see, phaser shots or torpedo shots come from parts of the ships that, it really had no business coming from anyways. So I'm probably going to go ahead and continue where this little detail here is going to be the photon torpedo launcher, the bottom underslung, uh, and this here, I don't know. I want to get y'all's opinion on it, but I'm thinking leaning more along the lines of that being kind of a sensor array. Usually you see a sensor array along here, but I think that would be an additional sensor array or something because tied into the shuttle bay because the shuttle bay is there it goes. I mean, it's just right there, so it's underneath it, so it could be a potential part of the shuttle bay, but maybe like an emergency drop way or something. So I don't know. I mean, it could be several different things. But let me know what y'all probably think. But as far as this bottom portion here, actually the new and improved mesh does look a lot better than what the other one was. Got some anomalies along here that I need to try to see if I can iron that out. For the best part, I think I've already went ahead and let's do this again. Shade smooth. Maybe I didn't do shade smooth. Oh, okay, I forgot to do a shade smooth on it. So that looks much better now. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on um, little details on it. I've already did some details such as I've just kind of gently mapped out or real quickly mapped out the underslung or the uh, what would be the correct word? Not underslung, but well, the bottom phaser strips. They're actually right here. I had to move them over a little bit because looking close to the studio model, which I have right here, it looks like they didn't even bother modeling the lower phaser strips anyways. I mean, they're there. I mean, you can see they're right here and they're there on the studio model, at least the pictures of the studio model that Doug Drexler released, but they don't look detailed. They look like they're just textured in. So, and they look like they would actually go more along the lines of this little flat piece here, but I guess the texture put them up high. I mean, I could probably move them up. Can I? I mean, I could move them in just a little bit more and maybe put them just like right at the beginning of the where the saucer starts to kind of dip under. Let's take a look at that real quick. So if I take this and that over, whoops, helps if I had it where I can select the whole thing, that in right there. Let's see, let's do the same thing over here, which we're almost there anyways. Guess that could probably still work. So I'll toy around with it, but there is indeed two phaser strips, sets of phaser strips on the bottom of the ship. And once again, I'm going to be doing, I mean, this is going to be putting in some more phaser strips along this. Don't know exactly where. And on that note, I'm also decided to officially, as of this episode, consider this a variant. I know I talked about it before, but for me, this is indeed from this point on going to be a kind of a variant. This is a later model produced Akira class ship with the additions of or upgrades to additional phaser strips and the saucer separation, which is which was what's going to be mostly unique with my particular variant as opposed to other variants that have that I've seen out there. And I've already got a lot of ideas on other things that this could be variants on, and for the reason why, the real world reason about why there were changes made to this ship. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit in later episodes. But if y'all notice anything right off the bat that where it doesn't quite look right, then just from this point on, just kind of just you know such as I know this. If we go into the front view, the deflector dish is not quite lined up 100% to the way it should be. This little area here is a little bit too low, which I don't understand because from the side looks just about where it needs to be. Well, almost. But from the front, it looks like the hat is too low. But just kind of write that off as, oh, well, it's a variance. So there were some subtle changes that was made to it. And once again, if you go from reference to reference, there's always little subtle changes into it. I know that they've kind of done some work on the model when they started using it in DS9. So the DS9 models are a little bit different from what was seen on Star Trek First Contact, and and some of the official released pictures of this look a little bit different from what was seen on both of those because they might have been um, like ships of the line calendars. The models was made by by somebody else, so they weren't using the actual models. But anyways, variants. That's pretty much what this is going to be, is just a variant. So with that being said, I'm probably going to go ahead and let me go ahead and see, what do I want to do? You know what? Actually, I'm going to go ahead and probably call this an episode to right now. I mean, so pretty much talked what we were going to talk about is that, we started working on the bottom, which is what I did. I'm just going to go ahead and select this and whoops, let's go ahead and bring up just that layer. And let's go ahead and do a control J on that. There we go. Let's go back into our mod. Yeah, there we go. So I went ahead and I've joined it to where they are separate meshes, but so I can go to here, and if I want to select more, it'll only select everything in that mesh. If I select this, it'll select only everything onto that mesh. So for all intents and purposes, they are one mesh, but they are two separate sets of geometry. So I could just click on this and move this. And eventually I'm going to go ahead and reincorporate this back into the upper saucer section. In fact, I might actually go ahead and do that once I get off of this, is go ahead and combine this back to this right here. So that's all one good solid mesh. And then go ahead and do all the work to connect vertex to vertex, and that's going to be a bit of a tedious job, but I'll be having that all done by the next episode, so be looking forward to that. Listen, once again, let me know about what y'all would probably think on this. If y'all know of any Akira models out there, that especially where they have it to where this is all one congruent or complete mesh, let me know where y'all seeing that at, because I would love to take a look at it and get an idea about how they done it. Um, and so yeah, in the next episode, I'm going to have a lot of these little details probably planned out. I mean, I don't know if I need to really do a whole episode on it because all I'm doing is just repeating everything that I did up here, but down here at the bottom. So, but yeah. So with all that being said, I just want to go ahead and say thank y'all for watching. This is B Belt Dan, and I will see you in the next episode.